Alright folks, I thought I would be doing a video and developing, yesterday I did a video on the new moon solar eclipse in Cancer on July the 2nd. And I thought that today's video would, I, I wanted to do a video today, but I thought I would do it on the planets that are going to go into Leo later on in the month and develop that side of things, or maybe do a video on the full moon in Sagittarius, which is going to be on Sunday night, Monday morning, at least here in the United States West Coast. But I realized there's actually more to say about the new moon solar eclipse in Cancer, and if I had not done the video yesterday, I would not be in a place to delve deeper into today, and there is a need to delve into it deeper that is going to be helpful. So we might as well call this video New Moon Solar Eclipse in Cancer, July the 2nd, 2019, Part 2. As I outline, at the end of this video, once I'm done processing it, I will put a link to all relevant videos, any video that I think is relevant. Shall I really futz with this? No, I'm not going to. It's fine. You can see me, and hopefully you can hear me, and we will keep talking. As I mentioned in that video, the reason why I'm doing a video on the lunar eclipse in Cancer so much earlier than I do a video on a new moon or even new moon solar eclipse because we have two planets that are already in Cancer, and the groundwork is being laid for this eclipse. I talked about the fact that the eclipse is related thematically to events that may have occurred July the 12th to September 12th, 2018, in particular the week before and week after July the 12th, and the week before and week after September the 12th, 2018. Not necessarily much wider than that. It's a pretty focused, and especially the week after July the 12th. These current eclipses so far that we're in seem to make their presence felt right after the eclipse. But we'll see. We'll see how it continues to develop. That was point number one. Point number two, I outlined to you, and by the way, the new moon solar eclipse is on July the 2nd, 2019. That's what this video is about. And the corresponding lunar eclipse in Cancer is going to be on January the 10th, 2020. So July the 2nd, 2019 to January the 10th, 2020 is going to be one arc. And the dates in between that are going to be important will be September the 2nd, 2019 and November the 10th, 2019. Remember, for the solar eclipse, I do look to what's going on 2 months after. It's a great mystery here for me, but I'm willing to put my money on it. Works. There's something about the 2-month anniversary of a solar eclipse after the solar eclipse, and something about the 2-month anniversary 2 months before a lunar eclipse that somehow are important and relevant. So anyway, let's just come back to July the 2nd, and why am I doing this part 2 video? I mentioned to you that the planet Mars was the first planet to move into the sign of Cancer this year in any significant way on May the 15th. And Mars will leave here on July the 1st. So we have Mars here just for another, 2 odd weeks, which is great as far as I'm concerned. I can't wait for Mars to get into Leo outside of Cancer. And I also mentioned yesterday that the planet Mercury moved into Cancer on June the 4th. And Mercury will be here till about the 26th. Mercury is zipping through Cancer. But remember, Mercury is going to go into Leo, and then on July the 7th, it's going to go retrograde, and then it's going to come back to Cancer, close to the middle and the end of July, and finish up whatever it is that the eclipse is about, and then leave. Let me just focus on these two planets themselves. There's a point in the sky that I'm going to call the eclipse point. For people who are more experienced in astrology, I'm talking about the North Node or the True Node. And the planet Mars conjuncts or meets up with or is in the same degree as the North Node, depending on how you draw the North Node, either earlier today or a couple of days from now. And Mercury, by the time we get to the full moon on Monday, let me just put it to you this way. By the time we get to the full moon on Monday, Mars and Mercury will have touched the eclipse point. Let me just call it that. Astrology aficionados will quibble with the exact date and the exact time and what really constitutes the eclipse point. Is it where the North Node is, or is it the degree, etc., etc.? But it's really It is a throwdown this week, okay? Because you've got Mars and Mercury and the eclipse point on July the 2nd getting activated, and they are opposing the South Node, the eclipse of release, which is going to happen on July the 16th in Capricorn. But you've got Saturn and Pluto, really two real heavyweight planets, intense planets, conjuncting or really close to the South Node. And so as Mars and Mercury make their way to the North Node, they're also going to oppose and create the standoff with Saturn and Pluto. Saturn will win and Pluto will win insofar as there's a standoff. Saturn is very strong in Capricorn, and Pluto always wins because there's no managing or controlling Pluto. Pluto just takes away whatever it is that it wants to take away. But do not use that, please, with Saturn's presence to excuse bad behavior. I did this because you said Pluto is going to take away whatever, so Pluto took this away. No. With these planets, you've got to be very conscious of the choices you make. And what you do and how you choose to do it is still very much in your control. Do not look to astrology or indeed anything or anyone else for permission or an excuse or a reason or a justification to do something that could get you into trouble. I'm going to put that right there, especially when the planets are aligning and creating this kind of tension. Since May the 15th, I was struggling with how to best describe the energy of the time. There's a premonition, I will say, I think that all of us have, that July and August will be intense months. We can see events lining up in such a way that there will be transformation in July and August. With eclipses, I like to say God takes the wheel. Another way to explain it is that events occur that force you into action, force you into reaction, which is also a way to take action. Change occurs, change is demanded, events occur in such a way that action has to be taken. As I said, be very careful. Don't use videos or astrological descriptions to get permission to do something you really want to do but you know isn't right. Your hands are on the steering wheel with regard to how you react to whatever it is that is brought up. And with Saturn in Capricorn so close to the South Node, it's almost a challenge around how you handle things and what the karmic consequences of it might be. Remember, the South Node is where it is that eclipses need to be released, and I would look to where Capricorn is in your chart to get that firm warning as to say, don't mess with how you take action in that part of the chart. Not right now. Mars is a planet of drive and action and activity, and also of war, because the idea is that if you get up and you decide to do something, you are probably going to run into some sort of force that is going to counter that. But Mars gives you the vim and the vigor and the drive to go ahead and try to attain your goal. When Mars enters the sign of Cancer, it's not really happy. Mars is a planet that likes to go from point A to point C in a straight line, knows exactly where the bullseye is, likes to shoot that arrow. Mars is fiery, driven, male, and Cancer is about emotional logic and nurturing and female. So when this hot, fiery, passionate, action-oriented planet comes into the watery sign of Cancer that is all about how are you treating me and emotional logic, and I know some people are going to say, is there such a thing as emotional logic? But there is. I took this action because I was angry. I took this action because I was this. I took this action because I was that. Because I felt this way and I felt that way. Not because I wanted to, but because I felt a certain way. And it might sound like I'm being sarcastic, but I'm very clear that there is such a thing as emotional logic. I took a nap because I just couldn't handle anything else, because I felt like it and I wanted to, and my body wanted to rest. Rationally, you may have needed to do something else, but because your emotions overwhelmed you, you ended up doing something else. But here's the deal. Mars isn't really clear-sighted. The action-orientedness as through emotional logic, there are other planets to depend on to guide us through the sign of Cancer better than Mars. So emotional logic may very well be clouding. It's also a little bit like fieriness has gone into a water sign, and it's like this wand or this baton, this flaming baton is, there's a line that Oberon says in Midsummer Night's Dream, but I might see young Cupid's fiery shaft quenched in the chaste beams of the watery moon. And there's something like this fiery shaft going into this water sign and just kind of losing its most effective, driven, passionate, fiery. I leave the symbology of the fiery shaft and the chaste beams of the watery moon and the getting quenched. And I will leave that to your imagination and Shakespeare's vivid way with language. But really, there is something to the idea of this fiery shaft of Mars getting quenched in the chaste, responsible, emotionally careful, watery sign of Cancer. What this means is that between May the 15th and indeed especially leading up to today, the throwdown has already happened. The earlier part, the past few days, especially since June the 4th, have already started to line up what the eclipse in July the 2nd is going to be about and what the second half of this year is going to be about. And with Mars's presence, there is a call to action and or a throwdown, depending on where the sign of Cancer is in your chart. If the sign of Cancer is in a more supportive place, then it could be that offers and opportunities have come up of a kind that could be emotionally helpful and responsible and nurturing and supportive. But if Cancer is not in a very helpful sign of the chart, it could be that there are forces that are working against you somehow in emotionally manipulative ways, in not very direct ways, in passive-aggressive ways that are in knifing you behind the back ways that are causing the forces to be lined up for combat. So either there is an emotional call to action, or else there is emotional manipulation since Mars the 15th, since May the 15th, and this will end, but the impact of it is really being felt now and actually has probably been felt for the past few days. Mercury, the planet of communications, entry into the sign of Cancer, but really entry after the new moon on June the 3rd, means that Mercury's presence was felt very keenly. First and foremost, Mercury blessed the new moon in Gemini because it was still in Gemini at that time, and it rules Gemini, and that's where the new moon was. So some of the communication may have been helpful thematically. Communication, writing, some aspect of communication and contacts and commuting and transactions and writing and speaking is related to the new moon in Gemini and might well be a positive thing. Some part of it, though, could also be related to where the sign of Cancer is and where you need to lean into from the eclipses. So if there are, the communications could be very much about these watery, emotional, logic-driven throwdown, whether it is an internal throwdown to yourself, whether it is a call to action, whether it is a call to make the choice, whether it is to engage in combat with someone and sort certain things out, whether it is to avail of offers and opportunities if it's a more positive thing. It could be that there has been a certain amount of communication since June the 4th. Is it in the shape of an actual person? Is it in the shape of a conversation? Is it the shape of an email? Did someone come in? In the tarot, there are pages who come in and deliver messages, or deliver a pentacle, or deliver a wand, or plant a wand, or hand a cup, or, for those of you, there's the idea of a youthful messenger, or a younger messenger, or a messenger of some sort, or a message of some sort that has come in since June the 4th to further galvanize this kind of combative, frustrated, directed energy. It's like the energy of direction and straightforward action is not comfortable and yet still needs to find a way to express itself. Here's the deal. Right now, pay attention, and it could very well be that over the next week you continue to take some action that is setting the stage and is in response to whatever this throwdown is or whatever this opportunity is that has been brewing since May the 15th, but has really become exaggerated since June the 4th. And it could very well be that the conjunction of Mars and Mercury with the North Node this week, so we're not talking about actions you're going to take in July, we're talking about actions now, but we're also talking that other people or your soul are taking. The throwdown and the intensity is occurring now. The stage is being set now. Whether the battle is internal, whether the battle is external, or on a more positive side, it's an offer or an opportunity that needs to be engaged with, depending on where the sign of Cancer is in your chart. You may elect to respond to this, whether it is by having conversations with people, and if the topic is unpleasant, it could be that the nature of the conversation is helpful. It's only helping to set the battleground even more, but it's not going to lead to resolution. The resolution is going to come in July, August, and really August is a beautiful month where we should all be looking forward to August and September at this point in time. Especially September, actually, even more than August. So pay attention to events that have been in play since May the 15th, but especially June the 4th. And see if there's some sort of correlation to events that occurred between July the 12th and September the 12th, particularly around those dates last year, 2018, and pay attention to where does that intensity is building. The intensity could be building for something wonderful to happen and come to you, more like an offer, more like an opportunity. The intensity could also be building around internal conflict. Remember, with the internal conflict, passion is not going to win. Saturn is going to win this week, or right now, or in general. So, responsible, disciplined action that really weighs what is the right way the conscious way, conscious of consequences way to act related to eclipses of release is ultimately what is going to prevail. So while the frustrated, combative energy, the backstabbing, the plotting, the trying to use emotional logic to justify decisions that are slightly rebellious, the plotting, while all of that is going to occur, pay attention to where it is, because the topic or the subject or the fiery shaft being quenched in the chaste beams of the watery moon is not gonna be victorious, but it is giving you a very clear signal about what it is that is going to need to be dealt with in July 2nd, September 2nd, and is going to develop till January the 10th of next year. And then there's going to be a final set of these eclipses in the second half of 2020. Let me start to wrap this up. I outlined important dates and important transits and set the stage for the July 2nd solar eclipse in a video I did yesterday. I'm choosing to do the video on the July 2nd eclipse even before the full moon video on June the 18th, because there are planets that are already in the sign of Cancer where the eclipse is going to occur that are laying the groundwork, and as a result of which I feel it's responsible to bring this to your attention so you can start to understand where does it the pressure is building. And because the work related to the eclipse is already occurring. I feel compelled to do a video today because the planet Mars and planet Mercury, which are the two planets that are active in Cancer right now, are making important transits this week. And indeed by the full moon on the 17th or 18th. By that time, the transits will be done. And I am exhorting you to pay attention to where does that pressure is building. Pressure that has been building since May the 15th, but has really somehow come into focus since June the 4th. For a few people, this pressure is actually going to be positive. insofar as it might bring an opportunity or a sense of where it is that they need to go ahead, and it might actually be bringing things into culmination that require you to show up. All transits require you to show up. You could have a glorious transit in your chart, but if you don't show up, the transit is going to come and go. So your chart is not going to determine anything if you're going to be sitting at home waiting for a transit to bring you something. It might still bring you something, but you're required to engage with your life. You're required to have planets like Mars and Saturn that help you go conquer things. Just as you're required to have planets like the Moon and Venus that require you to perhaps sit back and know when to wait for things to culminate. You sort of have to balance the masculine and the feminine, the active and the passive, when you play with the quantum field, or when you play with the universe, or when you engage. Without action, there can be no reaction. So you are required to act. Pay attention to wherever it is that communication tension, whether it's positive or challenging, has been building, but has really come into focus, really through communication, through someone, through a person, through a message, through an email, through an interaction since June the 4th. Could be related to activities that have been brewing since May the 15th. What they are telling you is where some of your action and where it is that resolution is going to be needed after the July the 2nd eclipse. And they are setting the stage thematically, which could be linked to the 18th, the 12th of July to 12th of September, but particularly those dates, 2018. They're setting the stage for an arc of activities from July the 2nd of this year to January the 10th of next year, with September the 2nd and November the 10th being important dates as well. There, I said it. I condensed it all. Okay, 22 minutes later. Here we go. Enjoy the video. If you find this useful, find this helpful, find it interesting, whatever it is, feel free to share the video, like it, comment on it, subscribe to my YouTube channel, click on the bell icon so that you can be notified when I do videos. And if you're interested in having me look at your chart for a reading, my email address is included in the description below. If you come to this video and it doesn't, just know that I haven't yet processed the video on YouTube. All right, I will leave you to this, and there are more videos to come this week. All right, take care. Thanks.